Om Shanti. We'll have a little bit of meditation before we start. So sit back, relax yourself. Sit in the awareness that I am a soul right behind my forehead. I'm a living jewel of light. My nature is that of peace, love, happiness, and power. I'm an eternal, divine, imperishable soul. I am the one who's giving life to this body. And I am the one who's performing actions through this body. And I, the soul, am the one who experiences pain and pleasure. And I am the one who has sanskaras, good or bad. Hidden under the layers of my skin, I interact with the world through this body, wherein I see through these eyes, I speak through this mouth, I hear through these ears, I use this body, but I am a soul. And I can exist without this body. Beyond this world, beyond the limitations of matter and sound, beyond the sun, the moon, the stars, beyond the universe is the land of light, the home of God and the home of souls. I gently take a journey, a spiritual pilgrimage, sitting in one place, but traveling through my intellect, by visualizing that I, the soul, the point of light, is flying towards the skies, free and light. I fly beyond the skies, beyond the sun, the moon, the stars. Nothing holds me back. Everything behind me has become very tiny. I fly till I reach the land of silence, the land of light, the land of peace, Param Dham. And in this golden red land, I see God. He's a point of light, just like me, but immensely powerful, almighty authority, the purifier, the bestower of happiness and destroyer of sorrow. He's my mother, a father, teacher, and guru. His rays of love, peace, happiness, purity, power, they reach out to me, filling me, empowering me. I feel safe in this embrace. There are no questions, no apprehension, just God and I. And in this pure meeting, I'm filling myself. Everything which is in my heart is in front of Him. I've opened up to Him, knowing very well that I, the soul, am the child of God who's in front of me. And He knows me through and through. Stay in this moment, stay in this experience. Slowly. And now take a journey back onto this earth, back through the universe, through the sky, the clouds, and back onto this earth, back in the room that I was before. I enter my body and seat myself behind my eyes. I am a soul, child of God, and I've empowered myself to play my role as a father, as a mother, as a teacher, whatever profession, as a child of a parent. To play all these roles beautifully with God given strength and virtues. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. So, yesterday I had spoken about and introduced the 8 powers, the attainments through meditation. So, today I will be elaborating on that. I taken 1 power, and so I'll take the rest of the 7 powers now. Now, if you see here that I had taken yesterday, this the power to tolerate, and how there is a difference between tolerance and suppression, and how most of us suppress and we think we are tolerating. So it's important to have that awareness that most of the time we are suppressing, and that is why we experience the difficulty, and we would want to, we think there is a limit to it. But here we understand that there is no limit for tolerance, but instead there is limit for suppression, right? So today I'll be taking up from here. So from power to tolerate, to we come to the power uh, that is to accommodate, adjust or accommodate. You can see all these rivers are coming and joining in with the ocean, and the ocean is accommodating all the rivers within it. So the explanation for this is to have the power to accommodate is to be able to maybe see weaknesses in others, or maybe see some mistakes others do, or maybe one's own weaknesses or one's own mistakes, but you're able to accommodate it in the sense that you're not spreading it around, you're not describing it, you're not discussing it, you're not making a big thing out of it. Like people who cannot accommodate, they have to talk about it, about others' weaknesses time and time again, even though you know there's nothing you can do by talking about it, but yet there is this need to discuss, need to talk about it, and they feel you should take out everything from your system. But then it becomes a habit, that even small things and everything you want to discuss. And also at the same time, when you don't have the power to accommodate, there are a lot of emotions that are very, very openly expressed. It's not accommodated, that even though we know this is not right, I mean, of course there is something, somebody's behavior is not good, but then if you're feeling upset about them, it shows on your face, it shows in your behavior. Everyone around knows that you're upset, which is not necessary, because the less anybody knows, if there's a problem in the house, they always say finish it in the house, don't bring it out, don't wash a linen in public, don't do that, just they would recommend that, because it finishes fast. Whatever conflict is there, if it's just in the house, and if you sit together and talk about it, it finishes faster. But then if you bring it out into the public, you involve a lot of people, you discuss about it, you describe about it. So that what happens is, the chance of it being what you call as um, finding solutions faster would be difficult, you know so a lot of people who don't have the power to accommodate throw their behavior around. Throwing your behavior around is like, in the sense that, like I said, everybody knows, but at the same time, um, it takes a long time to get back to a normal behavior, because sulking, not talking, being upset, ignoring people, not talking to people, cutting off
Yes.
from people, mm, and at the same time, being annoyed and not telling why you're annoyed. Mm. And all these things, if you know somebody's wrong, you have to make a big thing out of it. They say kings don't cry in public. That does not mean kings are not upset about things. They must be. They surely must be upset about something, but they don't show it, because the royalty is such that you don't let people know how upset you are. I'm not saying you need to act. Huh? Acting is not what we're talking about. Like, I don't have that feeling, but I'll just try to put on everything and make people feel that I'm okay. No, I'm not talking about that. Accommodation has reasoning, it has an explanation. Mm. See, I'll give you two examples. There was this girl, and she was married for about 2 3 years, not long, and her in-laws um, 50th marriage anniversary was there, and they were celebrating in their house itself, and all the relatives, for both the in-law side had come, and including her own parents. They've also been invited for a little celebration in the house. And so the parents arrived, and they're looking around for her, and they didn't find her anywhere. So they asked the son-in-law, where is Nidhi? I mean, where is she? He said, you find out. She must be where she has to be, maybe in her room. Why don't you find out? So it's very odd when, the person who lives with you is telling uh, that, you find out. So how is it that we have to find out when you live with her, no? So they were little taken aback, and they felt that there must be, there would be tiffs in the couples, it happens, it's nothing abnormal. So they thought something like that, but then, she's not yet come down. So they started calling her, and she's not picking up the phone. Little desperate, they called me, and they said, sister, she will pick up your phone. Why don't you just talk to her and ask her why she's not coming down? Because all the relatives are here, and some of them are asking for her. Where is she? Where is she? So I called her. She didn't pick up the phone, but she messaged back and she said, sister, I'm really mood off. I can't pick up. It's not a good time to talk. I'll call you later. I said that I have nothing to talk about, but how about going down? Your parents are waiting for you. So she replied back saying that, sister, I've had enough of acting in my life. I can't act anymore. I have to be what I am. I have to be the natural me. And that is, I do not want to go and please all the relatives when the husband itself is not good to me. And he can speak anything he wants, and it's very insulting. So I replied back and saying, and you don't have to act. You have to fulfill your responsibility. There are a lot of people who, what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of jobs that you have to go and do, out there in the world. That is a responsibility. You have to go and arrive at your office and do your work. Whether you like it or not, it's your responsibility. You don't have to act. You have to act on your responsibilities. You don't have to put on a show. Who's asking you to put on a show? So if you think that, I have to act, that means there is absolutely no element of love. You must be having some regard, some respect, some love towards your husband and family. So you have to remember that. Hmm. I said, if you don't go down, I didn't give her all the explanation, but I just said, if you don't go down, all your life they will remember that you never came down. This is something nobody will forget. Nobody will. And being in their house and not going down, I mean, that's really a difficult thing, for people to forget. They won't. So if you don't want them to remind you of what you did today, just show your face. You don't show your face. I'm not saying smile around, do anything, but the thing is, it's up to you. If you don't smile, if you don't greet, you don't think this is my responsibility, I'm a host, and if you don't feel that, then people say, what is in a face is like that? Why is it that I have to draw attention of others on me in a wrong way? When I don't accommodate, it's like I'm drawing attention from others in a wrong way, which I don't think so I deserve that kind of attention, where people will tend to talk about me in a wrong way. So the thing is, when I don't have the power to accommodate, I have to act. When I have the power to accommodate, I do understand my responsibility, I know what I have to put forth. And people who have the power to accommodate are very matured. They're very matured. Mm. And because of maturity, what happens is, a lot of people, whatever the age group is, they'll go and ask them for advice, because they're very, what you call, at matured. So they know that they go through a lot, but they don't show it. They're very experienced. People are considered experienced when they go through a lot, but they don't throw it around and show everyone what they've done. Even if they've achieved, they're not going to talk about it. Even achievement should be accommodated. If you are a great achiever, you've done everything, and you have to let people know about it, and that is immaturity. People will know eventually. Diamonds cannot be hidden, they shine. You will know they're diamonds. Mm. And artificial stones will also be visible that they're artificial, you know. So that is why this is power to accommodate. It's a very, very important power. Mm. So the more I accommodate, the more I tolerate. The more I tolerate, the more I accommodate. Because when you do not have tolerance or accommodation, there are a lot of complications in family, in work, in career, everything. People just leave jobs because they cannot tolerate. I know a lot of people who, with just staying in the house without a job, but because they can't tolerate. They can't keep one job continuous. Forget about what happens at home. They can't keep a job also. And people who cannot tolerate, they become complications for others. When there is sickness and illness and something, they can't tolerate anything. They can't tolerate pain. They can't tolerate an injection. There's so many levels of tolerance. I'm not saying when you suppress, you suffer. When you tolerate, you bring benefit, not only to the self, to others. But the more you accommodate, the more maturity is there. The more you accommodate, the more the solutions come faster. So I know someone who would accommodate in such a beautiful way, mm, and would not go and describe, because he knows what um, his son has done, but he would not just go directly, because I remember he saw his son smoking with his friends. He saw it, but then he didn't blast him immediately. He did not. He was very angry, and he was blaming his wife for how the son has turned out to be, because the mother is there in the house all the time. I don't know what the reason is, because for everything both parents are responsible anyway. But then he was, blasting his wife and everything. And how I came to know is that a call again, a phone call from them, and they said, Rajan is doing this and he's smoking and he's whiling away time, not going to college and all. I said, you have to accommodate it right now, because there's too many emotions. Because you just go and um, confront him about this, it's going to become a big thing. And that boy is very rebellious, in his personality. So if you say anything nasty, because of his anger or things like that, he's going to just get out of the house. I mean, he can do anything, it's such a young blood and all that. So I said, you have to accommodate. And father very well, a lot of people say, what is this, to shout at my son also, I have to think about a muhurat or something, But then he was quite accommodative, and he said, "No, I will just not say anything and find the right time to speak." When you accommodate, you're always having the right time and the right things to speak about. Mm. So I think he was traveling quite a bit, the father, and then when one day they were watching cricket together, and the boy, he likes one of the cricketers, and he said, "Papa, I like this cricketer. It's too good in the way he's worked and all that." So immediately he said, "You know why he's such a good cricketer? Because he has discipline, beta. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink. He's a complete teetotaler, and he's always disciplined." The boy didn't understand, why does smoking come into the picture now. So he was a little taken aback, I think, and he didn't speak anything. But later on in the night, he wrote a letter, a two-page letter, and put it on his father's table. And that is written, I've started smoking for the past 2 months, and not been going to college. And, I don't think so I'll be able to get rid of this until unless I change my college, because the friends there are like that. And I'm so much, for it. So the father didn't speak anything. He thought he'll speak, but then later he decided to change the college. The boys turned out very well. It's turned out very well, in fact. So the thing is, when you accommodate, you bring out best results, best solutions. Okay. So this is tolerance and accommodation. So you have any questions about this? I'll take up later after the whole powers. Okay. Jot it down. Whatever questions you have, you jot it down and you can ask me after this. Then comes the power of discrimination. If you see, this man is rubbing gold on a black stone. Is a jeweler, and he's rubbing on the black stone to see whether it's real gold or not. He's discriminating. He's trying to understand about the quality of that particular metal, whether it's gold or not. The power of discrimination is such an important power that if you see that the more we are able to know what to do when and how to do what to do when and how to do what. It's like, if I have a good quality, uh, I'm very silent, and I don't talk much, and that's a wonderful quality, and I'm a good listener, right? But there are times when people want an explanation about something. They want you to communicate and share about something, and they want to the people, especially the ones very close to you, they like certain kind of a connection and information about what is going about in your life and what did you do the whole day, just to feel connected. So when you're not able to communicate at all and you don't even respond, then it becomes difficult. Though you have a wonderful virtue of being silent and observant and listening and all that, but others would want your involvement too in a relationship. So you have to discriminate. When you don't have discrimination, it's like I'm always the same everywhere, not understanding what everyone needs. I'm not saying that we have to mold ourselves entirely according to what people want us to be, but there are certain situations and circumstances where I'm required to be able to mold myself to that extent that I am able to blend in with others. Yeah, I don't have to act that, trying to be good to them even though I don't like them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, see, it's about understanding. It's about understanding that this is how I can feel comfortable and I can make others comfortable. Or else what happens is that I'll have to invest a lot of energy. I'll lose a lot of energy in trying to understand why people are like that, or giving explanations to somebody, or wasting time of others. Hmm? So that's exactly why, when I have the power to discriminate when to do what, how to do what, it's like I'm not going to go and sow very good seeds in infertile land and expect results now. I'm going on investing a lot of goodness or things like that in some area where I'm not going to get anything from it. Maybe I invest in a bogus company. What do I get? I can't blame myself. I can't blame them. I have to blame myself. Why did I invest? Did I find out about the company well just because they're giving me a higher interest? Why did I go and invest there? I should have discrimination. No? Hmm? Why am I not invest? If I'm not greedy, I can invest it in some nationalized bank and be nischint about it. To be carefree about it. So discrimination is about not only with money, people, situations, future, everything connected. So when people say he deceived me, why is it that you have to trust someone so much? Oh my God, I gave so much. What did I get? Oh, but who asked you to give so much love when the person doesn't want your love? They just want some peace. Somebody said, I have so much love. I did so much for this person. No, the person wants to be left alone. That's what he's saying. I just want some space. Give it. Give it. No. You have to, when you have discrimination, it's like you are saving a lot of energy. You're saving everyone's time. You're saving your energy. You're saving your resources. You're not wasting thinking and thinking about someone too much, because you're just able to contribute what is necessary for whoever the person is in the question. Why am I showering things? Like somebody was telling me, sister, I'm extremely upset with my mother. Why? Well, what did she say? Oh, sister, she's give. I'm suffocated with her love. So love is a good thing, isn't it? As far as I know, love is a really good thing, and especially coming from your mother is really, really good. And how come it's like an issue for you? He said, no, sister, it's like, no, she's after my life. And I just need, I'm 26. I don't want her telling me, oh, did you eat? Did you eat? Did you sleep? Did you sleep? Did you sleep? The thing is, I can do what I have to do. And how I am, I'll figure out myself whether I am going to be okay or not with my lifestyle. I don't want her interfering. I don't want her. Now, the thing is, I wouldn't say what his mother is saying or doing is wrong. I wouldn't say that. I would never say that. But the thing is, it is an issue if the person is not taking anything from it, is not benefiting from it. Instead, the person is going away from you. You know, create that kind of relationship where the person can come and share whatever they're doing and how they're going about with you. That kind of environment that you're able to create, that they can come and talk to you instead of you pushing them to communicate to you and telling them what to do. There was this boy, and he started interacting with he's about 16, and he started going around with you know boys who are about 27, 28, and they're well settled, and they're from some very affluent families, and so they would drive very expensive cars and everything. So he's just hobnobbing with him, and he's just going around having if he was having a good time, he felt. Parents upset, why are you going around with someone who's like 1 decade older than you? And why is it that they give you cars, because they want to spoil this boy, they like this boy, and they would give the cars and say, go take the car and keep it in your parking area, and we'll pick it up the next day. This boy feels so good to keep that huge car in his house. We parents are not comfortable. Why do we have to keep somebody else's car in our campus? Why? I mean, just give it to them. We don't need such cars around us. But for a 16-year-old, driving big cars is something of a pleasure for him, and he's going about it. So she's like, she was upset. And so after a while, he would start coming at around 1 o'clock in the night. It's like it's something, shocking for them. And he would, if they would put the foot down, he would not even inform, and he would just go. He would not even give a call and come whenever he wants. So it became like, he was getting so much intoxication with that group. And the fear, especially the father's fear, was, he told me that probably they'll introduce him to drugs and alcohol and everything. He's just 16, you know. So no age group should be encouraged in that area and in that direction. So what do we do? He's not listening. So I told them, you're going on quarreling and arguing and saying things to him, and he's just saying some nasty things and getting into his room and locking himself in. Instead, I told the mother, you're in the house all the time. You know what? Just don't say anything. She said, what? I said, no, by you shouting, is he stopping? No, don't say anything. I said, what should I think, sister, to just be quiet? So difficult. I said, you understand that this particular boy will not learn by being told. He will only learn by how he's treated, because there the treatment is very good. Here the treatment is not good. So he would automatically, go there, because they're not judging him. They're not saying anything to him. Don't judge him. Just go about your work. Let him come when, let him go when. Give him, let's say 2 weeks. How long? Because the mother would feel how long, because he's doing that. So 2 weeks. Okay, let's see what we can do. So she started going about doing, just putting his dinner there and going and sleeping, and let him come when he wants, do what he wants. And then, not even 2 weeks, just 1 week or 2 days, something. And then he started, Mama, what happened? Mama, what happened? Why are you not speaking? What happened? What do you have to say? Mama, I'll just come back today at 10. Mama, I'll do. All the time is after. She said, no, nothing happened. Nothing. No, you tell Mama, tell. Naturally. If 60-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old would want, they would not miss out on mother's love, no? They would want that. And that kind of a disconnection, and that lack of concern, and that lack of that the kind of isolation for a 16-year-old was too much to handle. He stopped till date. Now he's must be 22 now, maybe 22. He stopped instantly, and he told the boys to take their car and everything. Such an instant result, not even more than that. So discrimination, what is it that I need to contribute at this time for this boy? I'll give you another example, and then I'll move on to another power. um, there was this, you know, a lot of parents come with some issues with their children and everything all the time. And so there was this man who had come, and his daughter, she started developing, interest in a boy, which developed into, which they didn't know that it started, and they didn't know that it was getting to be very serious. And eventually, that girl comes up and she says she wants to marry him. Now she just finished her dentist course. She has to do a master's now. And this boy whom she likes is from a different religion. Forget about communities, different religion only, which is something very difficult for a lot of parents. All parents, in fact. Huh? Even if a different religion, but then his 10th fail. Because you need to have some sort of a career, some sort of a profession, some sort of a earning. Nothing. He's working in a mobile store, one Airtel mobile store, and he's earning about 12, 13,000, probably sometimes 15. And he's ready to marry her. This girl comes from a quite a comfortable family. Father runs a factory, made some, and he's got only two daughters. One daughter's married and gone to the US. This is the only girl he has at home. So he told Swati, you cannot marry this boy. I'm not going to agree. The parents, both mother is like crying and she's so depressed and all that. So she would not listen. She would keep going and meeting, and they would come to know, and they would see their phone. They seized their phone. They seized her phone. They locked her up in the house, in her room. She'll jump from the window. She's done everything possible to meet that boy. So they have threatened that boy. They have, don't know what all they've done. What a parent could do, they have done, and it's not working. So they bought the girl here, and I'm sure she was not going to listen to me or anything. They just bought her and said, sister, you have to counsel her, talk to her, teach her meditation. I told her, no, she's not in a position to listen to anybody right now. Yeah. So what I would recommend is that you talk to the boy. Hmm? You talk to the boy, give importance to the boy. This is sister, no. This is like encouraging that relationship. I said, no, it's not. You want a solution, you have to have discrimination, because you should be very clever. Just stand back, don't get so involved and emotional. Stand back and watch. Hmm? She's looking up to this boy. She thinks he's the best. Tell her that, okay, we would like to invest some sort of a thought into this idea of you, because she might just elope, run away. Because I know a lot of girls from so many families just ran away without telling them. Just, okay, mama, I'm not going to be with the boy. Okay, papa, I'm not going to be with the boy, and then just escape the next day, gone with that boy. So such kind of complication we should not have, no? So I said, she seems quite sure because she's not sharing anything. I told, call the boy, take him to your factory, show him around, hmm, and tell him, this is the factory I run. I have nobody to take over after me. I want someone. I was thinking I would have a son-in-law who would have that kind of a business acumen that he can take care of my factory. So if you're going to marry my daughter, I would like you to be more educated, and because all these employees have to listen to someone, and they will only listen to someone who knows better than them, isn't it? So you have to do some little education, maybe do your degree, finish your 10th, do your degree, do your masters, that is, do your MBA. I'll send you abroad to teach. I'll pay you through your course. I said, think you're just giving donation to somebody to make their life. Okay, let him get educated. Go abroad and do an MBA and everything, and then come and take care of this factory. Then you can marry my daughter. I will educate you. I'm not going to discourage you in any way. He said, my God, why should I invest? I said, see, you're investing, hmm, or you will not invest, you'll come to know later. But your daughter is what is important. So he went and spoke to the daughter that we will take him to the factory, show him. And this is my main issue about him. Because the thing is, oh, he's this religion, oh, all that won't be a big thing for her. She felt, yeah, my father needs someone to help him in the factory. And that's true. So immediately she called him And she said, Majid, you should come and meet my father, because and all. He came and they took him around, and the boys like very happy, and he said, thank you, sir, and this and that. And then she said, okay, so how about you doing this course? First, you have to finish your 10th. Na? He said, yes, uncle, I will do it and everything. So they got a tuition person. He works, but he was ready to give tuitions the morning at 7. This boy has to go to work by 10:30. So the 7 o'clock was the course, the tuition. He has to go all the way to Kukkatpally. So, and go and take the course to the tuition. And as the days passed by, they could hear her talking to that boy, Majid. And she's shouting at him, literally shouting at him, wake up, get up. Why are you not going? Why did you miss 2 classes and this and that? My father is paying, and you go? Can't you do that much for me? That boy is not used to getting up that early and going anywhere. He's so used to not studying and just whiling away his life, and now suddenly he has to go and study and do all that. My God, he just wouldn't, he wouldn't do it. And she broke up in just a span of 1 month. Instead of shouting, screaming, but you should have that kind of discrimination, you should have. Mm. A lot of people will say, oh my God, if he really studies and does well and everything, good for you. Good for you. You think it will last? Any relationship nowadays will last for about, till he does his masters? How, on what basis are we saying if it lasts, then it must be really good? So, so the thing is, this is what we call as discrimination, right? Then comes power of decision making here, right here. So we're showing a balance here. And in this balance, what is most important is what is between. So what is in between determines whether this is powerful or this is powerful, if this is having more weight or this having more weight. So when we may have to make a decision, we can't take sides. And taking sides means is like going according to what you like. A lot of people say, why do you want to do this? Because I like to. Somebody I know who's just left her husband in Chennai, and she's come and she's living on her own because the parents are not approving it. So she doesn't want to stay with the parents. She's staying alone, took a job. And she has a 1.5-year-old child. And so I said, what is the problem? Why did you leave your husband and come? What is it? She's saying, no, I've taken a very good decision. The reason was too much. Is he beating you? No. It is having an affair? No. What is it? He doesn't hug me whenever, I want him to. He's not hugging. What is hugging got to do with? I said, but when you had a very complicated pregnancy, no? She said, yes. So it seems you would vomit a lot and you would not be able to go to the bathroom. You would not be able to cook. It seems he was to cook and feed you after coming from work. Is it true that he would come and put something in front of you and you would vomit and clean you up? He would do that. She said, yeah, he would do that. Isn't that love? Isn't that love? So the thing is, when you don't really understand what love is, uh, and then you make a decision, you have to be right in between and see the pros and cons, and you see what did he contribute, what did he do, and what is it that I got, and what is the attainment that I have. Hmm? Instead of thinking, I didn't get this, I did this is like, I don't like it and I like it, so I make a decision. They're very wrong decisions. Very, very wrong decisions. Right decisions are on the basis of being in between, knowing my capability. Can I survive in the world by taking a child on my own and living on my own? And now she's living on her own, and then she's getting her, somebody, her father tells me that some 10th class school friend, he's working in London, he's married, he's calling her and saying, oh, you are alone and everything. So without telling his wife, without telling his parents in India will be waiting for a child abroad to come. This boy doesn't even tell anybody. He comes only for her. This married boy. He comes for her, and he's giving promises to her that you're alone and everything. I'll leave my wife. I'll you anyway. You left your husband, so we'll all be together and everything. So the thing is, she's like, and he comes to her house. She's alone with the child. He comes and she says, "I'll stay in this house for a week, and then I'll go back." And his parents are right here in Banjara Hills, and he's not informing them. Hmm? Why do we have to, be a sitting duck for making people make such mistakes and encourage them in all this? We're not healthy at all. You know what the boy is and what his background is and what is he trying to do? The father is telling she's crazy. Mm. And the thing is, it's risk. It's very risky that every other man wants to come and help you, or somebody she knows is working in some Infosys. He's coming down on weekends and he wants to talk to us. So because you are not safe. You're not safe. So my decisions have to be on the basis of my own capability. If I am a peon in a company and somebody asks me, can you do the job of the chairman? You will say, no, 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 I can't. The peon will say, I will not be able to do that. If you want to give me the salary like a chairman, I'll take it, but I cannot work like him. Each one their own capability. Am I capable to do this? I want to do a business. You don't have a business acumen. You don't have a background. You have no experience. You have no education in that subject. You have no family backup. Why are you investing all your money in a business which it is not good for you? No, I want to because I like to. What is the reason? You tell me. I don't want to work under anybody. What reasoning is that? People who can afford to do a business, if they have that, they can they can afford to have such a thought, isn't it? So decision making, mm, is about my capability, what I can do, what I cannot do, mm, and know the repercussions, what would happen, and what happened in the past. If there's somebody who had done a business and he lost about 65 lakhs, he lost, which is a big amount for him. It's all his mother's jewelry, wife's jewelry is in it, gone. Everything's gone. Mm. And also his father's property, some property here and there, everything is lost and all, like everything's gone and is paid back. That's one good thing. And now he wants to do business again. So he was working for this GVK company, that some job he had. He said, just continue there, brother. Don't do business now. Taking loans and everything, it's not good. No, 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 sister, I have to do business. I have 3 partners and 4 partners. So now all the partners will fight eventually. I'm not being negative, but that's what happens. That is what eventually that happens. So decision making, you need a power to be, what you call is to be in between things and see both the sides and then decide. So to be right in between and not go by your feelings, your likes, your dislikes, and your interest and your desire, you require a lot of strength. Both discrimination, decision making, both require strength. So that is why the more the discrimination, the better the decision making. They both are connected. Okay. So these are 4 powers. And then the fifth power, if you see, the fifth power, if you see, hmm, it is power to face. If you see this, there's a little lamp and there's a storm, lamp and a storm, and there's death here. So the power to face is like, it could be death of someone, it could be a debt, it could be some sort of defamation. Hmm? You have to face it, no? Or disease. It is like a lamp in front of a storm. You have to face it. The more powerful you are, how much of a storm is there, the light will still be ignited. Hmm. So in Hindi it is said, तोहफा को तो भी तोहफा बना दो, तूफान को भी तोहफा बना दो. Make a storm into a gift. People who have the power to face are able to accept immediately. They're not an emotional wreck. Because most times you become emotional wreck because you can't even accept it that it has happened. You can't accept. That's the problem. So no, it is no, it's not happened. No, it's not happened to me. How is it possible? It has happened. And now you have to know what you have to do. Let's see. Someone I know was I don't know her very well, but she's an American, and she's been meditating with Brahma Kumaris for about 3 years when this incident happened. She was in her house. Her husband was traveling. Her daughter is in college. She stays there in the dorms. So she was sleeping in the night, mm, and usually she wakes up early in the morning to meditate and all that. So when she's sleeping at around 1:30 like that, so suddenly she was awakened. I mean, usually she wakes up to see what the time is, and, at least once or twice in her sleep. So she got up to see the time, and then she noticed one stranger standing in the end of her bed, which is something very shocking for anybody. They'll start screaming. Mm. But the thing is, at that point of time, suddenly she wanted to have a conversation. It's like that. She looked at him and immediately she asked, "How did you come inside? I've locked all the doors," she said. "How did you come inside?" It was like she started a conversation with him. Usually, when thieves and robbers and whatever they come into the house, people usually scream. It's like, and the robbers and thieves will also always be in anonymity. Nobody knows who they are. Mm? Nobody will have a conversation with them. What is it you want? How did you come? And nobody has conversations because this particular the robbers and thieves and all, when they go home, they're like normal people like you and me. They're not very threatening and attacking people all the time. No, they just live their life just like anybody else, and they won't be threatening their family members. But the thing is, anything familiar, if somebody is talking to you like they know you can't attack them. You really can't. So immediately he said, "I'm hungry." So she said, "There's food in the fridge. You can go and have it downstairs. You can have." So he just went, he just left the room. She locked herself and then she called up the police and 911. And then by the time the police came, he had already left. Now, the thing is, what his intention was and why he came in and all that we don't know. But the police appreciated her for her spontaneity, they said, presence of mind, that they very, without fear, without screaming, without getting agitated, she tried to have a conversation with him, which is like very, what you call as a great thing. So, power to face is to accept immediately. Yes, there is a thief in my house now. That requires a lot of preparation internally. Uh, she says it's only because of the 3 years when she's meditating and preparing herself. So that moment she was able to do that. Yeah? So to power to face. When you have power to face, you are safe. You are automatically very safe. Or else you're so exposed to all that emotional turmoil and mental problems, mental disorders, everything when you don't have power to face. And it's like, why this is happening to me? Why this is happening to me? You're questioning continuously and there are no answers. And anybody else's counseling or explanation doesn't get into your system. I remember someone losing a son. He just went to Goa and he died there. 21-year-old. So she was like crying so much, she was crying. And so mother went up and her own mother. She went up and said, in Telugu, "Edvadamma, edvadu, అయిపోయింది, అయిపోయింది." It's like, don't cry. Whatever has happened. How mothers would console, like that. She's trying to say. She got so angry at her mother. And she said, "Amma, don't say anything. Don't tell me all this. Both your children are alive. So you don't tell me what I should feel." She told her own mother that your children are alive. So I've lost a child. So I know what I'm going through. So there was another lady who lost her son also. She came and consoled her. And that lady has only one child. And she lost him. And she also lost him in Goa. So she went and told her, "Don't, you know. It's not worth it. You have to think about the other girl, the other child you have, and everything. And then she was like, she told me, in all that crowd of all the relatives are very close to me and everything, the only person I felt as understanding me is this lady, because she lost a son and she knows what it feels like. uh, and in Telugu she'll say, "Lopala pindesan sister." Pindesan means it's like something is squeezing me from inside. It's like that kind of pain is there. So this lady, she brought her to the center and she said, "This has helped me. This meditation has helped me to face my son's death, and also you should also take benefit." So she said, "I would not go anywhere because she told me I came." She said, "When you have power to face, you inspire others. You inspire others and you help others through the journey when you have power to face." Usually, when someone is crying, they all say, in families, if you cry, then what will happen to others? Why are you crying? Don't cry. You have to stand for others. People keep saying, for someone who's like a little older and they're crying, I said, no, no, you should not cry. They keep saying, don't cry, don't cry. So power to face is like, the ability to take care of myself so that I can take care of others, inspire others. This is a very, very important power because we are not prepared for coronavirus. It is happening. We have to face it. When you don't face it, there are questions, there is fear, there is apprehension, there are so many things going on. Every program I do, every course I do, they'll always ask about coronavirus. After so long, I mean, more than 3 months are over. People keep questioning about this because there is no answer unless you are accepting it. So this is what we call as power to face. Then comes a power to cooperate. Then comes the power to cooperate. Here it is. With all the hands lifting up a mountain together. Let us say I'm very punctual and I'm very disciplined. Oh, that's a wonderful quality. But the thing is, if I expect everybody else to be like that, just like me, in getting a task done, I want everyone to, be punctual and very methodical and very sincere and all that. That's not possible, isn't it? That's really not possible. Because that person will be more, what you call as friendly and very, you know, inclusive in talking and conversations, so on and so forth. Each one will have their own qualities, and all of them together would get things done, isn't it? I remember going to a company for a program, and there was a guest who had come from somewhere, and I felt, people are organizing things there, everything. But the best work was that the person who engaged him, because this man was getting so bored so quickly. So this particular HR person was engaging him in so much conversation. That's wonderful. When you are traveling somewhere, I remember we are traveling in New Zealand, and long distance you keep driving. So the person who drove us around, I mean, all through New Zealand, I can tell you, amazing this person is. So he's 70-year-old. 70-year-old. If you see him, he looks like he's 50. He's so active. He still works in the airport there. Is an Indian, but settled there for many years in Australia. But in New Zealand, he came with his wife and he's traveling. And I remember our senior sister, Yogini Ben, was sitting in the front, and myself, another sister, and his wife was sitting behind. So, all through the journey in the vehicle, I felt, my God, we would just drop off to sleep. How much can you see the sceneries and everything? After a while, you feel, okay, enough of mountains, enough of snow, enough of all this. You just drop off to sleep, because the same scene for a long time, you can't. We are sleeping all through the journey. Actually, most of the time, we are sleeping, all three of us, in fact. And the thing is, Didi, that is our senior sister, is engaging him in a conversation continuously. Now, he has to keep driving, isn't it? He's driving. Uh, but to take that up, that's such an important role. You're not driving, but such an important role to keep having conversations and talking about New Zealand, talking about Australia, talking about knowledge, talking about meditation. I think the whole hours and hours I could hear her talk because it doesn't take much time for someone to drop off the sleep on the wheel, the steering wheel. This conversations kept him going and was so enthusiastic to reply. He had so many answers and so much he loved to talk. And I felt that is cooperation. And she's not going to tell, okay, I'll see that you don't drop off to sleep, so I'm going to talk to you. So each one has their own role. We are able to sleep very relaxed way. It's because she could have a conversation with him. That's what I felt. So because travel quite a bit, and so many times we're just dropping off to sleep, and the whole car jerks. And then we know that man was just dropping off to sleep. The driver was going off to sleep, and then we look at the person next to them; they're also sleeping. Eh? So the thing is, everyone has a role. The person who's driving is not the only person who's great. The person who is able to engage them in that, seeing that whatever he's doing is great, making them know that what he's doing is great, is also great, isn't it? So just being punctual and disciplined, that I just don't have to think about. No, no, no. People who are engaging in others and talking to them and entertaining people, making the environment light. Hmm? So all these people are very important. If somebody is crying, I sit. Our understanding about cooperation is that if somebody is crying, I go and sit next to them and cry. And we think, oh, this is cooperation. No, you sit with somebody and cry and make others cry. It's not crying. It's not cooperation. If you're able to bring them out of those tears, it's cooperation. Cooperation is not just with money. A lot of people think money is the greatest. They say mansa dan mahadan. What you can donate through your mind is the greatest donation of all. If somebody is doing something, instead of being judgmental about them, you're wishing good that one day they will do good. If you're able to do that, that's great. You see a beggar and you think, oh my God, he's a beggar, a terrible beggar. He doesn't have work. Instead of having all those judgments and thoughts and everything, I'm not saying what they're doing is right, but by going on, throwing your thoughts and feelings across, if you have a good wish, one day they should be able to do things independently and earn and live their life properly. If you have a good wish, that is much better than giving them money or telling them to go and work. None of that works, because nowadays if you give them 50 paisa, 25 paisa, like those days, they'll throw it back into the car. They don't want your paisas. They have communities. They have what you call as a committee. They have the bigger community, and they earn like that. It's like a business. It's a known fact. It's nothing new. So when you are donating like that to them, it's not considered donation, because if they go and drink that with that or do something wrong, it is not cooperation. No, you're creating more problems for them. Mm. So when you're giving it, it's like you are confirming their life to be like that forever. So a lot of people feel I have to go and help the needy and poor and everything. But who is poor? Who's really poor? People who are not able to know how to be in life and how to use money in the right way are the most poor people. They're paving a path to become poor. Somehow, mm, people who have greed. So a lot of people say, like, we want to help a lot of people, we want to do a lot of good and everything. See, it's okay, you can do a lot of good, but the greatest impoverishment is not of money, it's of values. I'll give you a few examples. I'll give you three examples, and then you can build it from there. There was this person who was living in New York subway, sleeping. In fact, this homeless man sleeping in the subway there. So BBC saw that, and they wanted to do one experiment. The BBC, the British Broadcasting, they wanted to do experiment on this homeless man in New York, and they went and gave him some quite a bit of money to see that he can build his life from there and see what happens. So he took that money and he went, and it's quite a bit of money that he got. And then a year later, there's a talk show host. Her name is Oprah Winfrey, and she called him for an interview. So he's a lucky man who received a year ago a lot of money from being homeless. He became a person with a home and everything. So in the interview, she asked him, "So where are you living now, and what's going on in your life and everything?" And he said, I live in the subway." She said, "What are you talking? You live in the subway?" But they removed you from the subway, from a homeless man. They give you money to have a house and a proper living. Now, what are you talking? Where is that money? Do you have a house? Do you have everything? He said, "All money gone. Finished. Spend it off in 1 year." I don't know if it even lasted 1 year. It's all finished. So the problem for that man is not money. He doesn't know how to use money. So if a person is a homeless man, you give money, then what will happen? He lose it and come back to you again. Pointless, isn't it? So what is that cooperation am I giving to someone? He lacks something, I'll give. Somebody was telling me, my brother, sister, please pray for my brother. He's going to a job interview tomorrow. He should get it. I said, he won't get it, brother. You think he's going to work? He's not going to. I just told. So he said, "What are you talking, sister? Don't, you should not give bad wishes." I said, "I'm not giving bad wishes. I'm telling reality, because since 2 years, I've been listening to his wife continuously, his mother continuously. Mm. So the thing is, this man is paying the rent, the children's school fees, and he's giving his brothers rent, and to run the house, everything, the money for that, and everything, clothes and everything he's doing for the past 8 years now. This man has gone and applied for about 20 jobs, and he's worked there 2 days and come back home. He's not alcoholic, nothing, only laziness. Huh? So now, if he gets a job also, do you think he'll keep it? Why? He's paying everything. No? Is this cooperation? The wife is going on hitting her head against the wall. So, what is this? This man's going on giving money to the brother and everything. Hmm? So, the thing is, that is not cooperation at all. Another example, near this airport, there's Vijayalakshmi Foundation, which is run by JMR. So at one time during Shankranti, it's his hometown, which is called Rajam, near Vijayanagaram. I was there at that time for some program I'd gone, and so I happened to meet him. And he said, "Sister, my project is there, Vijay Lakshmi Foundation. Please, if you can contribute some sort of motivation talks and do something, that will be very good." And so he gave us the contact to meet Dr. Raghunathan, who was running this. He was heading this Vijay Lakshmi Foundation. And this Vijay Lakshmi Foundation is all about bringing the youth from Shamirpet. Shamirpet, the airport is Shamshabad. Sorry, it's been quite a while that I went there. So in Shamshabad, so many villages are there. So from all these different villages, they're calling this youth who are doing nothing, unemployed youth, and giving them a way to earn the livelihood by teaching them. 3 months, they keep them in that particular infrastructure. They keep them there, and a wonderful campus. They have a beautiful dormitory, clean bathrooms, and they have all these workshops to teach them how to repair an AC, a car, or a bike, or anything. The company people come and teach them, and then they take them into their company, and they can get a proper job there. What a wonderful project. I was very impressed with that project. And so I went and congratulated. I met, after going through the whole campus, I went and met Dr. Raghunathan and his wife. They both are running it. Dr. Raghunathan was running, he was teaching in IIM in Ahmedabad. He quit the job and he took this up. because he wanted to be what you call as a part of such a noble cause, and helping the youth of this country and so on and so forth. So I congratulated him. I said, "Oh, what a wonderful thing that you've thought about, this GMR project and all." So he looked at me and he said, "Sister, I'm so disappointed. I have left my job and I've come here. I'm so disappointed." I said, "Why? This is a good thing that's going on, isn't it?" He said, "It's a very good thought, but it's not successful." I said, "Why?" So he said, "It's so difficult to bring 30 youth from the village, all these villages. I mean, they won't come as an unemployed youth. Don't they want some sort of direction? Because you're teaching them 30 days free. Very difficult. Hmm? And even if we manage to bring 30 of them, they go through the 3 months training. They stay there, free boarding, free everything, free education, everything free. And after 3 months, they get a job. All of them. It's a 100% employment. Where have you heard this really? 100% employment for all of them. And then he said there is 1% success in that. Why? He said this, they don't want to travel all the way such distance to go and work. They say such a long distance. Who wants to go all the way there? We're not going. We're not going. We're not going. They drop out. They go for a month. They go for 2 months. They drop out. They do again. They're sitting under the trees and just whiling away near the fields or whatever what they do. So the thing is, as I said, the impoverishment is not of money. So this Dr. Raghunathan was telling, sister, people from the middle class and whatever the families that we have children, they travel 2-3 hours to go to an engineering college. Mostly in Hyderabad, they're all in the outskirts, engineering colleges. For 4 years, they travel. Not all have hostel facilities. They from the homes that we have, they work hard. They go 2 hours going, 2 hours coming, and they study. But these people are not ready to. So it's very shocking for me. For someone who really needs it, they're not taking it up. So the thing is, it's not about going. Cooperation is not about just going and helping those who don't have something. Do they have the capability to manage what they're getting and value what they're receiving? Is a question. The third example I was going to give you in Indore, we happen to have what you call as we've got a lot of centers in Indore. So we happen to have a particular a group of people who have thatched roofs and water dripping down the rainy season, and for a whole lot of people there, 50 families or so in some little locality there. So our sister there came to know about it, and she approached the government and said they should get something, some benefit. So they did get some land, and a corporate body that we approached, Brahma Kumar's approach, they made small houses for them, proper concrete. So it was not very big houses. It's just like this 2 rooms for everybody and all the families. And we thought it's such a good thing that we've done. And a lot of people appreciated this, sister. You've done such a good initiative by getting them all this and everything. That's all fine. But in just about a couple of years, there were calls coming from the government office. What I don't know which office. They asked the sister to come and meet them. So she went there. They said, they said all these women are sitting out there crying and everything, so you should meet them. So she went and met these women. There are all these women who had this house, they got these houses. So she was like surprised, what is the problem now? And they said, sister, the thing is, my husband has sold his houses, all of them, 75% of them have sold the houses, and they're drinking. That's what they're doing. So we don't have any money, not the house, nothing. We've lost everything. So they said, now what is the solution now? So the thing is, again, I mention again, it is not impoverishment of money that somebody is poor. I know someone who was earning about 2,000 rupees, 2,500 rupees. That's all. I know her personally. She brought up her 3 children. She'll put it and she'll just take this. She'll take a little bit from her money from her mother, give it back. She'll take from her brother, give it back. But then she would never ever take nothing. There's 2,500 rupees earning. She has saved it now. It's a good thing, no? 10 lakhs she has in the bank, 5 lakhs in another bank. And then she has three children. She brought them up. All three are working. One is doing masters on her own. Now she's paying for herself and doing a masters. And they've all given tuitions and doing small jobs, and they've come up and they're doing very well. Very well. They bought a house here nearby, an apartment. Father has never been, he's no more. So she's done. So there's absolutely, it's not about anything to do with money. And that's why they say the greatest cooperation you can give is through the mind. Hmm? Giving good wishes. Giving good wishes. And through your mouth, appreciation. Through your actions, some virtues you should show that people can follow. People should feel, oh, this is something I'd like to do. I'd like to be like this person. So this is three ways: through mansa, vacha, karmana. This is the best cooperation you can do, right? Then comes the power to withdraw. In this, they show the tortoise, and when it's going around, it uses its limbs and everything. But there's no work; it's not doing anything. It withdraws, and only a shell remains. The shell remains, and even if an elephant will walk over it, nothing will happen. It is so strong. It lived for 200 years, the tortoise, because of the shell, I think. It survived so long. And it doesn't eat anything great, or just tomato and something like that. And it survives. So the thing is, it's because the shell. So the more I have the power to withdraw, that is, I go within, I introspect, I look at myself. Is it okay the way I'm feeling now? Why am I feeling like this? Somebody was telling me, sister, every time, I have this family get together, I get very disturbed. It's very, very disturbed, she was saying. I said, why? Sister, so disturbed. Any family get together, anything, I will just get disturbed. So I said, you should introspect. No, you should ask yourself, why am I getting disturbed? Nobody said anything to you. And she kept looking, and she said, sister, I know what it is. She said, what it is? She said, I'm very jealous. I see somebody having something more, or they have a plan for a new house, or they've bought something new. Get all agitated. It's not like she doesn't have anything. But jealousy is just a particular weakness which is not connected to you having or not having. It doesn't make any difference there. So the thing is, you have to keep looking inside yourself and saying, why is this feeling there? If I keep encouraging this feeling, it's going to burst out and I'm going to create problems around. Yeah. And why is it, why am I here actually? To contribute good wishes, not to look at this one and that one. No, I didn't come here for that. Why did I come here? So I have to have this reflection again and again and again. Because the story they tell in what you call as Golconda Fort, it's about a king who was there and he was defeated because a spy inside his fort opened the gate to the enemy king, the enemy army. So he didn't know that within his fort there was an enemy. So if we don't introspect, we don't know the enemy within us. If we don't understand what is this uncertainty, insecurity which is working within me, if I don't understand that, then the situation outside will eat me up. I can get very influenced, isn't it? So that's why it's very important to withdraw again and again and again, to look within. Then I'll stay empowered. The last power is the power to pack up. So the photo there is about of luggage all packed up and kept there. So the power to pack up is about being ever ready, to know that I'm ready for anything. I know what power to use where. Yeah. I'm ready to put a full stop and not going on putting commas and question marks. Why did it happen? And it should have not happened. And you continuously increase waste thoughts. It keeps on going and going and going. So the thing is, to be able to put a full stop, I need strength again, a lot of strength. All these powers, they are powers. So the more I'm remembering God and taking power, these powers keep coming into my life gently. So to ability that, some people, something happened 20 years ago, I'll remember now. And it affects me so much. But I let go now, like I must have told you this joke. Somebody told sister, my wife is very historical when she gets angry. I said, you mean hysterical? Not hysterical, historical. She goes back and says, oh, 5 years ago you did this, 10 years ago you did. I'm not the same person anymore. 10 years ago I was 10 years younger. I was different. Isn't it? I'm not that anymore. No, you are like that. You did 2 years ago like that, to 10 years ago like that. So you are not able to put a full stop. Hmm? So these are the 8 powers. The thing is, let us say you buy a very fancy car for yourself. Yeah. You buy this fancy car and you can just drive it around, be happy and dandy. But the either are not good. You just keep it. But if people come, you describe the car, the mileage, the motor, whatever that takes that, you're fond of this car and you describe that car, but you never remove it and you take it out. So let us say there is an emergency situation about a couple of years later, and then you have to remove that car. It doesn't start. You say, what is this? It's a new car, and I put petrol in it and everything. Why is it not working? It's not going to work. Sorry about that. You didn't use it. The same way, all these 8 powers are within us, but they lay latent and not come out until unless you don't charge it. You have to keep charging it. The more you remember God, the more these powers keep getting charged. At the right time, the right power. When you have to have the power to face, if you tolerate, then what's the point? Some situations only need you to face it. Somebody took loan, and he said, I'm tolerating all these loan shark people, they're just after me. And I said, look, you don't have to tolerate them, you have to face them. You have to tell them that monthly I'll give you 20,000, say something like that. Na? And you show discrimination. You don't go buy car when you are in such loans. Why did you buy a car? Arey, choti se Swift gaadi hai, didi. I said, Swift gaadi hai, kuch bhi ho. It involves money, no? They were all your loan people are sitting quietly waiting for you, and you buy a car, they just pounce on you, no? It's as simple as that. Discrimination, and you made a wrong decision when you know you can't return this money you took from so many people. Money is a big thing for everyone. It's a hard-earned money for everyone, no? Mm. So the thing is, it's important to understand which power when and when what. So this is about 8 powers. So the thing is, they say it's very important to know how much money you have in the bank before you make plans for your future. Whether you want to buy something, whether you want to spend something, you have to have a clear idea of how much you want. Nobody, how much you have. Nobody who is sensible will say, how much is in the bank? I don't know how much is there. No, it is being very senseless because if you've earned something, you know how much you have in the bank, right? Accordingly, you plan your life. Same way, these powers, I have to know how much I have, isn't it? Because I'll have to use it in situations and different obstacles and different interactions and a lot of conflicts. I need these powers at one time or the other. Sometimes I need tolerance, sometimes I need discrimination. I need to know that this suspicious character, I need to step away, be nice to them, but I know I don't want to be involved and invest my resources with this individual. So I have to have that clarity, isn't it? So these powers, how much do I have, so that I know how much I'm prepared for the future. But usually we will not know this until unless the situation is there in front. Then we come to know, oh my God, I have no tolerance. Oh my God, I have no patience. I don't have absolutely, and I made a mistake already, and I have no decision making power. So the thing is, it's too late, no? By the time we come to a situation and we then discover that we don't have these powers. Instead, how lovely it is to know about it beforehand, right before that I'm prepared then. So how would I know beforehand how much powers we have? Is they say that the older the body, the less its capacity. Like you can't go jogging for kilometers and kilometers the older you get, unless you've done a lot of practice from a long time. And you can't eat a certain kind of food and digest it. because you're getting older. Yeah, you avoid quite a lot of food, and then say, oh my God, in the night I'm going to eat this. Not just because you're health conscious, but also because of your age. You feel there's certain things I can't just digest and I won't take it. So the thing is, the power in the body decreases as age. Same way. The question here is that all these powers are of the soul, not of the body. So, how much of these powers does the soul have now? How old is the soul? If the soul is old, I'm sure these powers are quite in a diminished position. And if it is, very young soul, mm, quite in its beginning, then I'm sure these powers are in the highest level. They're working at the right time, and whatever power you need at whatever time, it's coming, it's functioning, it's helping you. So the question here is that how much of these powers do I have? So first I have to know how old am I before I know about these powers, no? Huh? So how old am I? Um, if you see the soul, now we understand that we've had our journeys, all of us. We're very different from each other. Even if they are twins in a family, they're very different. Even though they look the same, they behave the same. I mean, the sense that they talk the same with the same tone and everything. But the thing is, their likes and dislikes are very different. Even though they're exposed to the same parents, the same relatives, the same environment, they're very different. From the very childhood, my very close friend, she had twin brothers. Both of them are so different. Ajoy and Bijoy. They were Bengalis. Huh? Very different. I used to see them, very young. I used to go visit them. Now they're grown and settled and everything. But at that time, I would see that, it was so clear that he would just one of the boys would like only sweet, and the boy just like everything namkeen. He wouldn't even touch sweets. Very young age. So the question here is that what we're trying to say is that, you know, even though in one family we're born and we're exposed to the same thing, we're very different because we've had a different past. you know Even though all that we talk about in development for a child, we talk about how 3-year-old will 3-month old will only show love for the family, love for the parents, love for the siblings, smile and recognize and all. There's no anger, nothing. But then you've seen children who are just 1-year olds with so much anger, so much. And I've seen such peaceful 1-year olds. You would make them sit in one place and just sit. They won't even cry. They won't. If they say please wait, they'll wait. I've seen such children. Then I've seen some children that they can't stand in one place for a second. They'll be running around everywhere. So they're all varieties. It's nothing wrong or bad or good in it. But this that shows that we come with our own set sanskaras into a family. Because this is not our beginning. If this was our beginning, then we should say my childhood was the best. I had no tension in my exams. I have absolutely no problem with my family. I never had a fight with my siblings. I was so calm, peaceful, and wonderful, and I was so divine. That is not the case for anybody. Uh, a lot of people can even share very sad stories from their childhood. You know, it's just not about poverty. It's also about relationships. It's also about their set of mind, whatever the mindset. So many things are there. So this is not the beginning. Anything in its beginning is perfect. Let us take into consideration the spectacles that I have. Let us say this is 4 years old. So in 4 years old, the first year when I bought it, I'm sure they were the best. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all doing fine. Second year, that I feel it could be little bit scratch here or there, or something has happened. I don't know how it happened, but it's happened. Third year, it's become loose. Like, it's just I can know that there is some sort of a it's not in its perfect shape. Fourth year, The third year has happened that. The fourth year, I think now I need to replace it. It's not doing really well. I'm not really comfortable with these spectacles. So everything goes through these four phases, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business, hmm, everything, even the soul. Like you can compare it to a movie or a drama. Like you see a movie, that the first scene, everybody is so happy and they're doing so fine. Everybody is, giving love to each other and everything is all great things. And then the second scene, you're just waiting for something wrong to happen because the story has to begin, isn't it? And the third scene is commotion. The villain has entered, is creating, all sorts of messy scenes. And then in the fourth scene, there is conflict. And then there is a small fifth scene where there is the hero goes and, finishes the villain. And then it starts with the first scene. The happy days are here again. This is how the cycle spins. The first scene to second scene, the third, fourth, and then the small fifth transformation. Hmm? So as I said, a drama, even in a drama. But the thing in a drama is that anybody can change the role, anybody can change a costume. Like somebody is not well and they can take their role and they can take their costume and play it. If you compare this whole world stage, its whole world is like a stage, and all the sun, the moon, the stars are the lighting on the stage. Huh? And we are all actors. But the thing is, the difference between that drama and here is that nobody can take my role and nobody can take my costume. This body is my costume. Nobody can take. If I'm not there, I'm not there. But nobody can replace me. I can never replace anybody. That is understood. Hmm? And I go through this journey of perfection to imperfection. Everybody. So we look at ourselves right now. Would I say this is my beginning? This is the first scene that's going on, the happiest, and there's nothing lacking. 100%, whether it is the condition of the world, whether the condition of my own self and my own, it's just not about I have a lot. That doesn't make you're in the first stage. There have to be four things. Tanna, dana, mana, jana. Four things. You should have perfection and happiness from these four. What are those four things? Tanna. You should have a very healthy body. Absolutely no diseases. Uh, Absolutely no disease, no fear of any disease also. Nowadays, there's a lot of fear of disease. Hmm? Tan. That is you're in the beginning. Man, you're very calm and peaceful, stable mind, never frustrated, never, you know, attracted to wrong things and getting lost in things and creating havoc. So all these things, mind. Third, dhan, you're a lot of money, and there's a lot of happiness to that money. There's no fear, oh my God, lose it and this and that. No, it's happiness. Four, Jan. All the people around you are happy with you. You're happy with them. Hmm? It's not like 1 day, 2 days you're happy. No, I'm not talking about that. Everybody is happy 1 day or 2 days. That is, you're never upset with anyone around you. So the thing is, it's a very ideal kind of a situation where you have perfection in all these four. That means this is your beginning. It's a beginning of the soul that you are. A majority of the people that I know would guarantee, but this is not their beginning. Because everyone deserves to have a beginning, to have all these four things in perfection and enjoy it. That is not the case because today everything is okay with money, but there's something wrong with the relationship. And there's something good in relationship, there's something wrong with my body. Something going wrong with everything good with my body, something wrong with my mind. So it's a continuous vicious cycle which is going on. So right now, if you see, where are we in this? Mm, In the first phase or the second phase or third phase or the fourth phase? Where are we? Is the question. Because accordingly, we know how much strength we have. So this is a drama, as I said, when we're playing our roles. And a lot of people ask questions, is if this is the drama, we're playing our roles. Yeah. Who's the director of this particular drama? Because there's so many people suffering, so many people losing their lives, and so much poverty, so much war and everything. So who's directing this drama? Say God is directing it. They say, how come God is directing this drama? Then so much sorrow is that God is so wrong. What kind of director is he? Now let me tell you. As I had mentioned yesterday or some days before, God is a bit not very non-interfering father. What is the role of director? Director, he directs you, tells you what dialogue you should speak and when you should speak it and how you should go about. So all that he will teach you behind the stage. But once you're on the stage and you forget your dialogue, he can't do anything about it. He can't do it. I mean, he can't come onto the stage and stop you and say, "Excuse me, that was not your dialogue," isn't it? He has to just let you see him, and so that he can prompt you and say, "No, this is what you need to say." But when we don't even look at him, then I'm responsible whether the audience is going to throw flowers at me or they will throw tomato at me. Whatever they throw at you, who's responsible? I am. Now, so why did coronavirus come? Whose response? Did God come into China and say, let there be coronavirus? No, we did what we did. Humanity. Mm. So whatever we go through is what we do, isn't it? So God cannot be blamed because He's already taught me what is right and wrong. I think we all know what is right and wrong. There's nobody who will say, I don't know what is right and wrong, because we can guide others, we advise others, we counsel others, and let people know what is right and wrong. I always give this example. My niece, when she was 2 years old, she was sticking stickers on her father when he was sleeping. And there was a new house that they had taken, and there was a room where there was a chair kept there, and they called it the timeout room. So when she's naughty and she's throwing a tantrum, they used to make us sleep. I mean, sit there on one of that particular timeout chair for 5 minutes. For a 2-year-old to sit in an empty room for 2 minutes is a big task, and it's a like big punishment. So one day, as she was sticking all the stickers, and when they tried to remove the stickers later on, they found it's very painful. So they started putting water and everything and started removing slowly all the stickers from his body. And they observed that this little one is not to be seen anywhere. Usually she's always where the mother is or the father is. Suddenly she's not visible. So they went searching, searching, and then she's sitting in that empty room on that chair on her own. She's taken time out for on her own. They went and asked her, why are you sitting there? She said, I gave pain to daddy, so I'm sitting here. When a 2-year-old knows it's wrong to give pain to somebody, when an adult know what is wrong and what is right. So we cannot say, I don't know what is right and wrong. God has directed. I don't know how to speak my dialogues. I am forgetting my dialogues. I am not acting very well on the stage. Right? So this particular drama which is going on from the scene one to scene last, we understand we are not in the beginning, at least not in the first two scenes, the first two stages at all. So where are we really? So the thing is, this particular what you call as drama is shown in a symbol form in bhakti. They say when you put that sign during Graha Pravesh, during inauguration of a car, during a wedding or things like that, all your problems will go away if you apply that particular symbol. All your obstacles will go away. There'll only be labham. There's a lot of benefit will be there, and all sorts of good things will happen to you. But people have put that sign during marriages, during inauguration of cars and everything, and yet wrong things have happened. There've been divorces, there've been accidents, there've been problems at home even after putting that sign. So what is that sign, and why is there they put it even though there is no benefit? Because the thing is, the sign, when you know the meaning of that sign, they say in every loss there will be gain. Just by putting that sign, there won't be any gain. But by By understanding the meaning behind that sign, you will experience gain in every loss. So this is the sign. If you see it, this is called the swastika, the world drama wheel. This is the whole wheel. If you see, mm, it starts from here to here, from here to here to here, and then it spins. Mm. So if you see here, this is the golden period of the soul. I was mentioning about everything being perfect. So the sign here is like this. That means the ones who lived there were givers, all givers. And no takers. They say dene wale devta, the ones who are giving are deities. So here they are, they're giving. And the ones who lived here, they lived for 1,000 to 50 years, this period of time. This was the golden period of the soul. Hmm? So the deities who we worship right now, they're the deities who lived here. And the second part, if you see, it is coming down. This is called Treta. Treta means coming down, the silver period of the soul, from golden to silver period. The coming down, that is the amount of perfection, purity has come down. And this whole period, if you see, 2,500 years of perfection. Then the third, if you see, the sign is like this, means they are begging. They're seeking for God. The sorrow is begun. They're, asking God to help, all that. So, and this in this particular sign, if you see, there's this sign is of begging. This is the copper period. It's also lasts for 1,050 years. Then the last scene, if you see, the sign is this. They'll raise the hand for violence with no reason. There's absolutely no reason why you should, throw a bomb at somebody or throw a, whatever. Just want to. Just like that. What will you get out of it? Just God has told us. So they will do anything wrong and they'll blame God like this. This is Ghor Kali Yuga, the Iron period. This also lasts for 1,000 to 50 years. And the end of this, the period of the Iron Age, is that age which we call as a confluence age. You can see them meditating here. This is the confluence age. This lasts for 100 years. This is also called Sangam Yuga. This is the period that is going on right now. Because the Kali Yuga, the Iron period is over. It's finished. Now we are in the confluence age of 100 years. And in that, about 84 years are over. And so this is a time of transformation. Like when we were in school, I would remember that if there had been, let us say, some sort of a bhakti thing would come on to the TV, we'll off it. Any lecture about bhakti and God, and I don't know, we were not interested, just off it. But now, there's so much popularity and so many channels. Just not old people are listening to that. Lot of youngsters. Because the demand is increasing. This is the age of transformation, confluence age. Best sellers books are not about fiction books. It's all about how to books, how to overcome this, how to overcome that, how to overcome jealousy, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, these are the books which are being sold the most. So right now, the trend is they all are looking for transformation. They're all looking for becoming stronger, more empowered. So this is the confluence age. This age, they remember it's at Kumbh Mela. They say when oceans and rivers meet, that is the time of purification, they say. So they all go dip in the water. But it is not about water that is going to purify you. How can water purify? Because whatever wrong we have done, it's the soul which has done, the body has not. Is a car should be arrested or the driver? The body is a car, no? So if you go and wash all the car, you think the accident that he has caused because of being drunk will go away? No, he has to go to the prison. Nah? You just don't wash a car and say, no, the car is all washed and so everything is fine now. All my sins are gone. No, you have to be punished. So in the same way, the soul is the one has to be purified, not the body. But there is a meaning in the Kumbh Mela. The ocean is compared to God. He's always in one place and he's unlimited. We are rivers, we are flowing in life and death and everything. God doesn't have life and death. So when we meet the ocean, we get purified. That's what it means. It's not like meeting ocean as ocean. It is metaphorically speaking, but God is compared to an ocean, right? So in the same way, if you go to Sri Shailam, there's one temple here nearby, and if you go there also, there's a lingam there, and they ask you to bend down and touch your forehead to the lingam. They say that is a time of purification, which means to say the confluence age where you don't need any mediators, no gurus, where God Himself is a guru, where you touch your soul to Him directly. That is confluence age. There are three ways they show in bhakti. One, they tell you to go around the temple. If you ask them why I have to go around the temple, the mandir, they'll say it's good, you should go. Some go for 8 times, some go for 3 times, some dip them in very big, big temples. Like I saw it in Madurai Meenakshi Madurai temple. They would dip themselves in the water and they are rolling around the temple, a circle. So there are various ways, if you see, various ways and methods, if you see, that people, go around the Pradakshinalu, Parikrama, whatever it is called in Hindi. So the thing is, the meaning is only one. That is, I have gone around the cycle. That is this whole cycle, if you see, I've gone around the cycle. God, I've gone around the cycle. I've lost all the powers now because it's the end of the cycle now. I've lost all the powers. I'm in this end of Kaliyug. I have nothing now. So make me like these deities once again, because the deities were in the beginning and they were pure and perfect. So all those virtues that I have lost, I've regained back once again. That's what it means, going around. If you don't know the meaning, you can just go around, go around. It's like exercise only. There's no meaning in that. The second is, in the hand of Sri Krishna and Vishnu and everything, there's a Sudarshan Chakra. It is not Sudarshana, it is Swadarshana. Swa means to be able to visualize yourself and the journey you've taken. They say when he would spin it and leave it, he would, behead all the asuras, all the demons. So it actually means that when he would spin it, that he would know where he came from and what he is now. When he would spin it, he will behead the asuras within him. His own weaknesses he would behead, because you know where I came from, what I am. Why should I do these kind of activities? The third one they show is during Aarti time, they put deep and then they do like this, and they'll come to you. You're supposed to touch it and do like this, which means to say that soul, that is a deep, has gone around the cycle, gone around the cycle. So they come to you, you are in agreement of it. So you touch that deep and touch the forehead and say, I'm the same soul who've gone around the journey and I'm agreement with you. That is true. But now there is no meaning. Everybody does like that, and everything. But the meaning is, I've gone around the cycle. So that's what it means. So this whole cycle is shown in Bhakti automatic. So we are right here. How do we know that we're in the confluence age, and how do we know the Kali Yuga is over? It's written in the scriptures that when you start buying water, that means it's the end of Kali Yuga. When a man will marry a man and a woman will marry a woman, it's end of Kali Yuga. So when the thing is, all the signs are there. We've come to the end of Kali Yuga. It's a time of transformation now. Whatever situation we are in, things around us are going to transform now. It's not going to be the same. How prepared am I as a soul is what is important. So right now we understand we are in the end here. We understand that we are not new at all. The soul is not new. We're pretty old, very old souls. And these 8 powers are not very intact either. A very degree it could be, what the homework today is, check how many powers you have